Good evening, everyone. Most of you know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Victor Frost. I'm a content creator, maker, and general nerd of all trades. Tonight, I'm going to be introducing you to a hobby, nay, a lifestyle, shared by me and more than 1 million people around the world. Tonight, I'm going to be talking to you about self-hosting and home labbing. We'll get to home labbing in a bit, but for the moment, let's start with self-hosting and what it entails. There we go. So, what is self-hosting? Self-hosting, as the name may imply, is the practice of hosting digital services that you might otherwise turn to outside companies or organizations for yourself. This can come in many forms and serve many functions, but a great way to think about it is that you're making your own personal cloud. What do I mean by that? We use the cloud for any number of services. We use it for storing files with things like OneDrive, Google Drive, and iCloud. We use the cloud for productivity using tools like Google Docs, Office 365, and Adobe Express. We consume media on services like Amazon Prime Video, YouTube, Spotify. These are incredibly useful and convenient services, and they are what make the cloud what it is. So what does it mean to make your own personal cloud? See, the cloud is a marketing term. What the cloud really is someone else's computer. The companies that provide these services to us build massive data centers that use scads of power. We're talking giga and terawatts of electricity and tons of water for cooling just to host your documents and your cat memes. But you don't use all of that. You use like this much. So what if you moved your usage away from this and instead used something like this? Something with just enough compute and storage capacity to provide you the services you need, while keeping your data secure and using only pennies a day of electricity. This is not only possible, it's also not hard to do, and there is a massive community of people who do it too. So, what does a personal cloud look like? Well, the most basic thing, and where a lot of people start, is by self-hosting their files. The idea is that you have somewhere that isn't your regular day-to-day computer that you can keep files and documents that you access, share, and you even use as a backup. Looking again at services like Dropbox or OneDrive, the self-hosting world has the equivalent, the Networked Attached Storage, or NAS. Storage that's available to you and any other device on your home network, and even remotely. This is a great option that a lot of people don't even know they have, especially if they're struggling with having a lot of data that they want to wrangle. As a content creator, I used to have 6 hard drives in my desktop to keep all of my working data and asset libraries. Terabytes of data, tens of terabytes. And since I would go on trips, if I needed any files that weren't on my laptop or on OneDrive, I was SOL. I could remotely connect to my desktop, but that means it would either have to stay on all the time, or someone would have to go turn it on for me. Once I got my first NAS, all of a sudden my desktop didn't have to be this big hulking tower, and my data could live on a device that pulled 1/10 of the power my desktop did. Fun fact, if you have a wireless router with a USB port on it, you actually already have a very simple NAS. All you have to do is plug in an external hard drive and configure the router to share it. But storage is only one thing. There is a whole universe of things that you can host yourself, most of the time for free. If you have a large media library, you might want to try Jellyfin or Plex for your home streaming service, or Kavita for your ebook or comic collection. If you're tired of Google Photos, Imik can come in clutch with even advanced features like facial recognition and geomapping, all without your data leaving your network. For something like Google Docs or Google Drive, Nextcloud might be something you'd have interest in. You can even do things like network-wide ad blocking, running local AI assistants, have advanced home automation, and so much more. There is an entire ecosystem of operating systems, clones of existing services, unique tools, and even services that normally cost money but offer self-hosted versions for free. But why? Where did all of this come from? Why do people care about self-hosting? For a lot of people, myself included, there are plenty of practical reasons to self-host. You may need a level of personalization or customizability in a service that other available options simply don't provide. You may want to handle data that is private, sensitive, or controversial, which may violate the terms of service for more conventional options. Or you might just feel safer keeping your data or regularly used services on your own hardware or on-prem. There are a lot of reasons people choose to embark on their self-hosting journey. And of course, there are the top 3 reasons that you will find in just about every conversation that has to do with self-hosting, and this one will be no exception. First off, when you self-host your data, corporations can't hold your data for ransom. This happens all the time in the tech world. A company starts offering a service like storage for free. Then, once people use it, integrate it into their daily lives, they say, oh, hey, yeah, we eliminated the free tier. Maybe you missed the email. Anyways, pay us or we'll lock out some of your data. This isn't hypothetical. This isn't even an anecdote. This happened to me and my wife. Anita had a Pixel phone for a long time and, as one does, used Google Photos, which offered the security of having all of her photos backed up to the cloud with unlimited storage of full resolution photos and videos for free. So even if something happened to her phone, the photos and videos, her memories would be safe. In 2021, she got a message on her Google account. Google had reduced the free tier of the storage shared by all Google services account-wide to 15 gigabytes. Her account had not just photos and emails, not just photos and videos, but documents in Google Drive, emails in Gmail going back more than a decade. This account storage cap meant that not only she couldn't back up any more photos, she couldn't make any more documents. And she was even, according to Google, at risk of not receiving emails if she didn't pay them. She did not pay them. Instead, we downloaded an entire backup of her account, about 300 gigabytes, deleted what was up there, and started self-hosting her photos on an image server. It's not perfect, but now no one can hold the photos, her memories, hostage. Second, cost savings. And this has an asterisk because there's a caveat and we will get to that. Much like getting solar panels, owning chickens, or planting a vegetable garden, if you are paying for cloud-based services, self-hosting can save you money over the long term. I don't pay for an extra OneDrive storage because I can access all of my data on my server from anywhere in the world. I don't need to pay for multiple backup service subscriptions because I back up my computers to my server and then just back up the whole server. We are actively unsubscribing from streaming services because we buy and rip movies and TV shows to our server, which is perfectly legal. Now we own those movies and shows, and they won't go away just because some service lost their distribution rights. Third, self-hosting is a way of asserting personal data sovereignty. This is a philosophical choice. The biggest con perpetrated by the tech industry writ large is that we, as consumers and users, should expect to have our data, our emails, photos, personal files housed, processed, analyzed, and repeatedly leaked and mishandled by giant corporations that more and more insist that we should have to pay for the privilege, while also selling all of that data or metadata to advertisers. Personal data sovereignty is caring about what happens with your data and doing something about it. It's about taking back control, even if that can come with inconveniences or downsides. And there can be downsides. So what's the catch? Well, self-hosting, even with ready-made appliance-level hardware, still puts you in the position of cosplaying as a sysadmin from time to time. You will need to learn things. There are a lot of products that make it a lot easier, but it definitely won't be 100% plug and play. Thankfully, there are plenty of resources to learn from if you know how to find them, which is actually pretty easy. There's also cost considerations. I told you we'd get back to it, and here we are. How much a person will spend on hardware is widely variable, but most people will need to purchase some amount of hardware. Be it a computer, a NAS appliance, or even just drives, you do not want to cheap out on drives. And there's energy costs to consider as well. Commercially available NAS's, network attached storage, can use as little as 8 watts at idle and 18 watts when being accessed. But if you're building a home server yourself, then it's not likely to be anywhere near as efficient. And no matter how little power it draws at idle, that number will be a continuous draw for most cases, 24 hours a day. And even small figures can add up. Lastly, there is a risk of failure with self-hosting anything. Commercial services like OneDrive or iCloud come with a guarantee. If you pay us money, we will do the work and maintenance for you. The control and arguably privacy you give up comes with the knowledge that your data and access to it is backed up by scads of servers in dozens of data centers with hundreds of sysadmins working to keep all of that up and running. With self-hosting, it's just you. You have to make sure that you are handling redundancy, blowing the dust out of the fans, paying attention when a hard drive failure happens so you can replace it before you lose that data. Yes, when a hard drive failure happens, not if. You have far more control, but also the responsibility that comes with it. So, assuming you are comfortable with all of that, how do you get started? Well, that depends on your particular mix of two things: what your level of technical skill is and what your budget is. If you have a relatively low level of technical skill and a decent budget, your best solution is to buy a storage appliance like something from Asus Store. Their NAS devices have won award after award and feature a robust OS that is both accessible to new users and capable enough to let you build up to more advanced usage should you want to. Entry-level models run from $180 to $380 depending on what you need in terms of expandability, but they are good quality products basically across the board. If you have a high level of technical skill and a low budget, then I recommend reusing a spare computer you have lying around or finding yourself a cheap Facebook Marketplace special and putting your money towards a couple of refurbished hard drives. Refurbished hard drives are generally really good. They're certified either by the seller or by the original manufacturer as being basically just fine. You can even build a reasonable home storage server with something like a Raspberry Pi 4, which is a small credit card-sized single-board computer, if you're creative enough. If you have low technical skill and a low budget, start with learning how to host services on your own computer. Lots of self-hosted services are usable as something called a Docker container. And if you can follow tutorials on YouTube, you can learn how to use Docker. But really, this is the point where you can learn skills and figure out if self-hosting is something that's worth it to you. Lastly, if you have a high level of technical skill and a decent sized budget, well, hell, buy a NAS appliance and build a home server. And this is where we start to veer into home labbing. So what is the difference between self-hosting and home labbing? Well, if there is a difference to be had, and some would argue that there isn't, in my opinion, that difference is this. Self-hosting is about satisfying a utility need. There is X need you have, and you are choosing to satisfy that need by hosting it yourself. For example, you want a simple website. Rather than paying for a whole hosting package, you decide that you'd rather just buy a domain name and host the website itself on a server in your home. Home labbing is about creating an environment where you can learn skills, test things out, and generally play around with stuff. You're not so much trying to solve a problem or satisfy utility as much as you are just kind of messing around and chasing your curiosity. There is a lot of overlap, and a lot of times things will migrate from a home lab into the rest of a person's self-hosting environment. For example, I've got a pretty stable set of services I offer on our home network, but in my home lab, I'm experimenting with a single sign-on authentication system, so anyone I give access to will have just one set of credentials to access everything on the network, instead of a set of credentials on every service. This hasn't been rolled out yet to the general network because it's still something I'm learning, but that's why it's in my home lab and not more widely accessible. People can go kind of crazy with home labs. Some people buy multiple huge server racks and set up phone systems in their house, buy tens of thousands of dollars of enterprise-grade equipment, usually for a fraction of the price on eBay on the secondhand market, run petabytes of storage and consume kilowatts of power. But there's also people who keep a few computers on the shelf in the closet and run game servers for their friends, or try to min-max on power efficiency, or combine the power of used office PCs into a compute cluster. There's a lot you can do if you get interested in home labbing. There's even a new trend of mini racks. You think model trains is the deep end of nerd hobbies? You ain't seen nothing. To wrap this up, I'd like to share with you my home lab. So here we have the basic internet connection. We've got the router connected to the internet. And we start off with the big kahuna of our network, Nebula Station. Nebula Station is our primary server, and while I do some of my home labbing on it, it's what hosts the majority of the services that are available to pretty much everyone in the network. I've got ArchiveBox, Backblaze, Jellyfin, tons of great services available, including WeatherStar, which pretends to be the old school Weather Channel weather report TV interstitials that you'll find if you watch the channel. It also hosts two virtual machines, computers inside of computers. It has my Blue Sky PDS, which is the personal data service for my Blue Sky account. If that virtual machine isn't on, I can't log into Blue Sky. It also has, and it's blocked by my subtitles, so I'm going to turn them off for a second, a virtual server that's whole job is just to stream the video of a webcam pointing off the balcony, so I can see a nice view of nature and catch the amber glow of the sunrise on the mountains. Branching off from the router, we've got a network switch which connects my mini server. The mini server is a Raspberry Pi, and it runs our network DNS. Anytime any computer on our network makes a request for an internet address, it routes through that little tiny computer, which is how we can block ads and tracking from devices across our entire network. Phoenix, our kid, their PlayStation tries to phone home every 15 seconds. There are a lot of devices on our network that try to phone home, and I venture a guess a lot on you guys' too. It also hosts the control software for the uninterruptible power supply for the network infrastructure, plus a service called TwinGate, which is what lets me remote in. It also has a computer I call the Holodeck. The Holodeck's entire job is virtual machines. I don't do a lot with it at any given moment, but pretty much all the time there is a Windows 10 and an Ubuntu virtual machine available for me to use to play around with. These are computers that I have in there that if the OS decides to burn, if it needs to be wiped, I don't care. I can just roll it back to a previous moment in time and it's good to go again. We've got a power over Ethernet over power link to another network switch. This is where I have my workshop computer, the computer that pretty much controls my laser cutter. And I have another single board computer called Printerface. It's the interface for my 3D printers. And I've got one more bit of computing attached as well. I have a cluster I call the Hive. It is a bunch of tiny computers that are individually not very powerful, and I'm still learning how to do a computing cluster, but eventually I'd like to host a website off of it with high availability, meaning that any one of these little computers could go down and the website would still be operational. What I would use that website for, who can say, but that's the point of a home lab. You can just screw around with things and see how, see what you learn. I also have my main desktop, Vega. Pretty much the only service it hosts is my artificial intelligence services. I run large language models that are similar to what most people be familiar with as ChatGPT locally on my network, so that I can use it to do things like debug my code, rubber duck technical problems with, and things like that. It's fun to play around with, and I'm not draining the water out of an entire lake to do so. Of course, it goes even further. I have Internet of Things devices like cameras, smart bulbs, smart outlets, power monitors, a TV, smart displays. I've got virtual machines off in the internet that I can access from anywhere in the globe that I use to run services for clients and for myself. I've got devices, cell phones, tablets, laptops that through TwinGate have access to all of the services that I run here. And it's all secure, and it's all my data on my hardware. If you'd like to learn more about this, I'm going to be posting a bit more of a detailed write-up along with links and references and cool projects you might want to check out on my website on heyvictorfrost.com. That link will go up probably tomorrow, and I'll make a post in the Losfus Facebook group with a link to that specific post as soon as it goes up.